Well, good afternoon. And on behalf of Commissioners Rich Brown, we'll get this is a good start. Rich Beck and Therese Brown, I want to say thanks to the community for spending a little bit of your time with us today. I especially want to give a shout out to the news media. I thank you so much for the measured approach that things have been handled in the Fort Wayne and Allen County community. And I think that if the national news media would take a page out of your book, this nation would be a whole lot better off. The intent of the news conferences that we've done has really been not only to provide good and useful information, but also to inspire and communicate hope to our community. We hope that we'll be able to do that today and believe that we've been successful in doing that over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Now, it's been a tough road. We've had to change the way that we do things in our places of work, in the community, and just in our everyday lives. But we're going to come out of this a far better community than we went into it. We're at a point, though, where we really can't knee-jerk. We've got to look at the challenges that we've faced and the ones that will be facing us, and we have to continue to follow the prescribed protocols. We've got to pay attention to what the CDC is telling us, and we have to practice the hand washing and social distancing requirements that they've laid out. But, as I said, we will emerge stronger. Now, how far one falls really isn't as important as how well prepared one is to pick themselves up. And our current plans are all about laying the groundwork for picking ourselves back up. You know, the good news today is that we're talking about getting back to work. We're talking about opening up certain hospital procedures and other recovery efforts. Because we want to get back to work and restart the economy, today's news conference is going to focus on business. We've got great representation from the business community and from local, state, and federal governments that will hopefully help to answer some of the questions that you may have. How have business practices changed? Are there best practices that have been discovered that will help businesses operate more efficiently in the future? What are some of the current business issues? What sort of relief might be available to businesses and those that they employ? How might things look for businesses as they emerge through the recovery period? And are there best practices that have been learned that might be shared with other businesses in the community to help them get back on their feet a little bit more quickly? To address a city perspective on this, I'd like to invite to the podium Mayor Tom Henry.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good afternoon. I particularly want to thank the speakers who will be coming before you today to share with you their perspective on how we will continue to move forward as a city and a county. What I would like to do, though, if you'll allow me, is to take a quote from Henry Ford and modify it a little bit to really give the quote some real justice when it comes to the city of Fort Wayne and the county of Allen. By coming together over the past 5 and 6 weeks, we have truly began a process to identify our responsibilities during this pandemic. And by working together and staying together, we were able to show progress, significant progress as a community. There has been one community after another who has recognized that Fort Wayne, Allen County has been a trendsetter in making sure that the pandemic cannot reach any further than it absolutely has to in our community. We have taken the proper steps. And I certainly want to compliment the Board of Health and all of the healthcare community, as well as all of our first responders, and we know who they are. Our thanks goes out to them on a continuing basis because, again, by working together, they've allowed this to happen. And finally, by staying together, we will succeed. But it's absolutely imperative that we stay with our original requests, our original directives. There have been a lot of communities out there who are beginning to get stir crazy. And that's one of the reasons I come here every week, so I can get out of the house. Yes, it's been a tremendous journey, but now is not the time to quit. I believe that the apex is coming if it's not already here. We have to let it go its due course. By leaving too early, we will do nothing but put us in harm's way. So as you listen to the speakers today and their suggestions of how to move forward from an employment perspective, keep in mind that this will be a journey. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Stay the course. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the jewels in the Fort Wayne and Allen County community for the longest time has been Fort Wayne Metals. When I talked to our next speaker, I was so encouraged to hear the number of things that were happening in that business, the number of things they've been learning, and the number of things potentially that can be shared to help other companies get on their feet more quickly. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming and sharing a little bit about what they're doing at Fort Wayne Metals today. I'd like to introduce to the podium now the chairman and the CEO of Fort Wayne Metals, Mr. Scott Glaze.
Thank you, Commissioner. Because our company, the products that our company makes, over 90% of them go into the medical device industry. Because of that, there was never any doubt that we would continue to work as an essential industry or essential business during this crisis. So our entire focus has been how do we keep the doors open? How do we keep our workforce safe? So really starting in February when we started hearing of the COVID-19, before it was even called COVID-19 crisis, we were hearing from our sales reps in China that there were problems over there. Normally we have people all over the world traveling. One of the first things we did was set up a quarantine regimen for anybody coming back from Germany, from Europe, from Asia, to make sure we protected our workforce. We've been following all of the CDC recommendations and all of the local health recommendations going forward. One of the first things we did was we set up a COVID-19 task force that includes people from our human resources department, safety, quality, operations, so everyone can work together to set up protocols for how to do everything from cleaning to limiting travel between our facilities and sharing best practices. We have 11 facilities in Northeast Indiana. 10 of those are in Allen County. We have 2 in Ohio and 1 in Ireland. One of the things that our Irish plant did was, since we run a 24/7 operation, there's a lot of interaction between our production teams between shift changes. So they instituted a gap of about 15 minutes between the shift changes so that people didn't have to interact. And if there was something that happened on one shift, it wouldn't get spread to another. We ended up adopting that at all of our plants. So now there's a little more separation there. There's also very stringent cleaning processes. If someone is ill, becomes ill at work or before coming to work, it's following the CDC protocol, and actually it was some of our customers helped us develop that cleaning. So It has to do with distancing. We've tried to spread out our workforce. We now have 175 people working from home. We've set up all of the IT necessary to make that possible. We are doing teleconferencing everywhere. Rather than people meeting, we're all just meeting on the computers to go through our processes. Even with all that, we're keeping full production running. We're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing wire for the medical device industry. Some of that is going into simple things like masks. We're making the structured nose wire for a soon-to-be mask, and I think there's 3 other companies we're doing that for. But also a lot of emergency room supplies that our customers have asked us to step up the production of that. So in the face of this, we're learning how to work safely, work together, but at a distance to be able to keep production going and keep our employees safe. To date, we've had no instances of confirmed COVID-19 cases within the company. We've had people that have had symptoms of different types, but we've kept them out of the plant, and so far none of them have been confirmed as COVID-19. I guess the last part of that is we've learned a lot of interesting ways of working from home, more than I ever thought was possible. Teleconferencing, much better. We found out that our meetings can last about half as long as they used to, so I think it's probably making us more productive than ever before. But it's an ongoing learning experience, and we keep taking what we learn and try to make it better. As things loosen up around the country, we've been focused on making sure that we don't back off of the standards and the processes that we've put in place very quickly, or even at all in some cases. This is not going to go away overnight. It's going to take a long time to work its way out, and we're going to do whatever's necessary to protect our people. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it. So many people in the community, so many businesses in the community have looked to the federal government for some sort of assistance, some sort of help, some type of direction, some idea of what next steps might be. And to help us work through that a little bit today, we've asked Tinisha Weigelt, who is the district director from Congressman Jim Banks' office, to join us. Tinisha?
Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to be here. I think first I'd like to touch on some of the provisions from the CARES Act that have been set aside to help with small businesses. Originally was $349 billion was set aside for the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP, and that money was exhausted fairly quickly. In the state of Indiana alone, almost 60,000, or 36,000 rather, PP loans were approved, and that's for over $7.4 billion. So they're still working on getting that funding out. In addition, there was $7.3 billion that was authorized for the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan Program from the SBA, and that funding has also been exhausted. The legislation also created what many people haven't looked at is the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and that would allow eligible employers to get a tax credit of $5,000 per eligible employee. The state of Indiana has already received $4.2 billion across the board, and they're slated to receive an additional $2.4 billion. That money's at the Treasury Department. We've been working with the governor, hopefully to get some of that money to our cities and local and townships. In addition to that, in response to the economic and financial difficulties, the Federal Reserve has stepped up, and they have the many options available, but they have specifically the Main Street Lending Program, and that's to support small and mid-sized businesses that may not have been able to apply for the PPP or the EIDL. In addition, there's the Municipal Liquidity Facility, and that program is to help state and local governments manage their cash flow during this time. So kind of update, last night the Senate, the U.S. Senate voted on legislation. It's called the Paycheck Protection and Healthcare Enhancement Act, to provide nearly $5 billion to small businesses, healthcare providers, and to expand testing. So specifically, the PPP program would get $310 billion. $60 billion would be set aside for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And then hospitals would get $75 billion. That's for the healthcare providers who are on the front line fighting right now and some of the losses that they sustained. That's in addition to the $100 billion that's already been appropriated. And then finally, $25 billion has been set aside for testing. And that's in hopes of getting us up and running a little bit faster to get our economy back in full force. Some of the things that the congressman has done on our team, the congressman sends out a daily email update to over 200,000 Northeast Indiana residents, and that includes immediate updates. We've worked with Parkview, Cameron Health, Adams Memorial, Lutheran, to amplify their messages, to get out information that they have. We've worked with our local governments, Community Harvest, and others. In addition, the congressman and our staff have called over 4,000 constituents since the onset of COVID-19 to answer questions related to the economic impact checks, small business loan program, and unemployment. In addition, we've hosted several virtual conference calls with our lenders, our small businesses. Before I came here, we were on with our emergency medical responders, our first responders. We've done veterans, you name it, and we've been trying to reach out to everyone to get this information, to get real information to people. So the biggest thing that you guys could do for us is, as the congressman's advocating for our priorities in Northeast Indiana, it's important for us to have your feedback and input. So you can reach us at 260-702-4750 or our website, banks.house.gov. And then I'd also like to thank all of our partners, from the first responders to the governor's team to our local elected officials, our chambers of commerce, for partnering with us to make sure that we're getting the right information out. But most importantly, we just need to hear from you so that we know how we can help and what you need. So thank you.
Thanks, Tinisha. Many people don't realize that a lot of times what comes from the federal government is actually passed through to the state of Indiana. And I think that the mayor would agree that part of the successes that we've had in Allen County up to this point has been an agreement that we would kind of follow some of the dictates of the state of Indiana, and at least look to them to help provide some of the local response. As those things begin to pass through the state, we do look for ways to get them back into the Fort Wayne and the Allen County community. And to talk a little bit about that, we have asked State Representative Phil Quinta to come and spend a little bit of time with us today. Phil is the minority leader with the State of Indiana House of Representatives, and I think he can help us understand a little bit more what the state's response to this entire situation is. Representative, thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Thanks to you and Commissioner Brown and Beck and Mayor Henry, of course, for doing these news conferences and the leadership that you've all provided during this difficult time. We appreciate it. Citizens of Fort Wayne and Allen County appreciate it as well. I just got off the phone not too long ago with representatives from the hotel and restaurant industry, and as was mentioned earlier, this is obviously a difficult time for local businesses, not locally, obviously around the state, where I was told 83% of restaurant employees have either been, throughout the state, have been laid off or furloughed. 66% of Indiana's restaurants are now closed. So you can see it's a difficult time, particularly for small businesses like restaurants, hotels, and such. And I appreciate the update from Congressman Banks' office, Tinisha. And of course, most of the money that we're talking about does come from the federal level. Obviously, it's going to flow through the state. And I just want to mention a couple things, if I could, a couple of websites that I think for employees should take advantage of, just for any questions that they might have, how to kind of navigate through these difficult times, including for Indiana unemployment insurance questions. They should go to www.in.gov/DWD. They have a lot of information on there for employees, for example, for employees, how to file for unemployment insurance. Are you eligible, are you eligible for the additional $600 in weekly benefits that's coming from the federal government, how to file online, and of course for employers, filing procedures, and for example, what late penalties the state will be waiving due to COVID-19. There's a really great website for small businesses to access. It's isbdc.org. It's really great. You can get a lot of questions answered with regards to the PPP program and, of course, the CARES Act. And really the best part is if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, it says, "We are here to help." And there are local offices around the state, and there's phone numbers there for local employers to call if they have any questions at all as they sort of navigate these difficult times. The governor is also encouraging employees to if they have any concern at all about workforce safety, where they are working, to call the Indiana Department of Labor and file a complaint with IOSHA. We will be, as Tanisha said, Indiana will be receiving over $2 billion, almost $2.6 billion from the CARES Act for the state. And while that money hasn't, or how it's been determined yet, how it will come to Fort Wayne and Allen County, rest assured that myself and the rest of the members from the Northeast delegation will be making sure that Fort Wayne and Allen County gets their share of that money. And finally, we're here to help as legislators. I'm in a weekly meeting with the governor's chief of staff along with the other three caucus leaders. I'm getting a lot of information. We get them out to our staff, to the rest of the legislators. So to the public, if you have any questions at all, you want to access your local legislator, I'm going to speak on behalf of the senators and the representatives across the state. Don't hesitate at all to ask us questions. You can go on iga.in.gov. Up in the right-hand corner, find your legislator. Punch on your legislator's name, zap off, email a question, and we will try and get you the answer. The other thing, too, on there, you can sign up to get updates. We've been emailing updates to anyone that goes on and signs up to receive those. And it's just not about employment or job issues. There's all kinds of things. I've been asked about voting, for example. I know that probably will be a topic at one of these if it already hasn't been, how to access an absentee ballot and those sorts of things. So we get all kinds of questions, and I just want the public to know that we are here to help. I also want to thank the public for for practicing social distancing, and also, of course, echo Tanisha's comments and safety, and saying thank you to all of our all of the frontline workers, the safety personnel, the hospital workers. They're doing an excellent job. Thank you very much for having me. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Representative Quinta. Vacations are nice, but for some of us, this is turning into the longest vacation that we've ever had. Many of our employees, I know, want to get back to work. Some are going stir crazy at home. It's going to take business. It's going to take a response from that group to help recharge the economic engine of Fort Wayne and Allen County. To talk a little bit about how we may be looking in the business world in our community, we've invited John Urbans today. John Urbans is the president and CEO of Greater Fort Wayne. John?
Commissioner, Mayor, thanks for having me here today. It's been a crazy month and a half for everybody. We have been, Greater Fort Wayne Inc., our staff's been working remotely since March 16th, when a lot of things started to go down. We've trying to set the stage and continue to work, like Scott talked about. One of the things that we've been focused on, as the mayor said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We need to be focused on how we're going to get through this together. As we started working through the process, obviously as a business organization, we started reaching out to 1,400 plus members, calling all of them within the first few days, talking about how they're being affected by this, things they're looking at, how are they going to make changes, and got a lot of great feedback that we've been able to provide to state leaders, local leaders, and our federal delegation as well, so they can start helping understand how to prepare everybody and helping to move things forward. we've been focused on connecting businesses to resources. So Tinisha talked about the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Fund Program. We've been very focused on connecting businesses up with those opportunities. Hosted a webinar 2 weeks ago, had 500 businesses on it, where we walked through each of those programs and started to prepare them for the application process. And I know in talking to businesses, a number of businesses locally are already receiving both the EIDL loans and the Paycheck Protection Program, so that is helping them continue to move forward through this pandemic. The state dollars that are flowing to the state of Indiana. One of the things that we've been very focused on is making sure that we're connected with the governor's task force that is looking at how to deploy those funds, providing information from locally here in Allen County, but also Northeast Indiana. So working with the regional partnership and others to get regional information to that task force. Fortunately, we have Krista Marcaselli from Star Bank from Fort Wayne is on that task force, so we've been able to work directly with her to get information to that task force and keep things moving forward. One of the things that we're very focused on right now is the governor started to signal that we will be talking about a reopening in some fashion and staging in some fashion, and Scott covered a lot of that. They've been working through safe practices now for the last month and a half, 2 months. How do we make sure that all businesses understand the things that they need to be doing? Yesterday we had a call with Dr. McMahon and city and county staff, some health professionals, to start to talk about what are the ramp-up guidelines that businesses need to understand. What if they're in the restaurant industry, the retail industry? What if it's just an office environment or a manufacturing environment? Each of those workplaces is different, and they're going to have different things to deal with. So we're working right now with the health professionals and Dr. McMahon to put together kind of ramp-up guidelines that businesses can start to understand. Here's the things we're going to need to do to not just keep our employees safe, but keep the public safe as we move forward, as starting to ramp up some opening. One of the things that Representative Quinta talked about, unemployment. That has been something that has been significantly impacted. Starting Friday, the state will be opening up the unemployment lines for independent contractors and 1099 workers. So that's something that's coming this week that will be a new thing. Obviously go to the Department of Workforce Development website. If businesses have questions, they can go to our resource hub that is located right on our main website. I would say also if businesses have questions, we're holding virtual office hours still. So we're getting on a virtual Zoom call Monday through Thursday where it's just open. Business can jump in, ask their questions, get answers, figure out the right resources, and we can help direct them in the right path. So at this point, we're really focused on making sure businesses have the connections that they need, the understanding of the new guidelines that will be coming out, and just the assistance they need to get back open and get back to working when the time is right. And that's what we're doing, and thank you for having us.